Crowds. People as far as the eye can see. 3-hour line projections. To the inexperienced, this might seem like certain doom for someone hoping to enjoy their day at Universal's Islands of Adventure. You might think, I don't have the money to buy a fast pass, or I'm not staying on property, so I don't have early access to the parks. So I must be doomed to a day of waiting in line only to ride maybe 2 or 3 rides in the entire day.
Right? Wrong!
Maybe if you don't know what you're doing, that dismal prediction could come true. But that's why we're here. For you.
Oh, me?
Today, we're going to be giving you 10 tips and tricks to make sure that this does not happen to you. And to test our tips, we recently attended Universal's Islands of Adventure on December 29th, the week exactly in between Christmas and New Year's. One of the most crowded days I've ever been to the park, with lines for Hagrid stretching well over 3 hours. But guess what? Using our system, we were able to ride everything that we wanted to ride by about 6:30 in the afternoon. And we're going to tell you how we did it.
For each of these tips, we're just assuming that you don't have a fast pass or early access to the park, because let's face it, if you did have those things, you don't need us. What are you here for?
No, we're assuming that you're just the average Joe attending the park maybe for the first time in your life. So without any further ado, let's jump into these 10 tips that you need to know before you step into Universal's Islands of Adventure.
So let's do this thing!
Number 1, learn the park's layout.
Our first tip might seem a little obvious, but you'll be surprised how many people walk into Islands of Adventure and have no idea where they're going.
Not only that, but a lot of people also don't know what rides there are even to ride in the park. Now, we're not telling you that you need to study enough to be able to write a written exam over the exact layout of the park, but you should know at least the general locations of some of the rides and the different lands that you can find within the park. Just knowing this will put you way ahead of the vast majority of people attending the park that day.
Luckily, Islands of Adventure isn't a complicated park.
Pretty much just a circle.
It's just a circle.
Not a real circle, more like a freaky circle.
There are 2 very convenient shortcuts that are very nice to know. One is behind the Green Eggs and Ham quick service restaurant in Seuss Landing that you can walk through, that you basically skip through the whole Dr. Seuss land.
And the other is the bridge that takes you by Velocicoaster, and it takes you pretty much from Jurassic Park's land over into the Lost Continent, letting you skip Harry Potter. And believe me, if you're in a hurry, you do not want to walk through Harry Potter.
No.
And this takes us right into our next tip, which is know your must rides. Coming off learning the layout of the park, you should also know what rides you want to ride before you even step into the park. This will help you to prioritize where to go next, as well as how long you'll be willing to wait for that ride.
Now, if you've never gone, here are the rides that we would recommend you go on, as well as about how long you would wait for these rides if it came down to it.
We'll be flashing these on screen, but again, this is your day at the park, so don't even feel like you need to take our list seriously. This is just what we would recommend, but it's your day. You can ride whatever you want.
If you want to ride the Storm Force teacups all day, the only ride that you do, it's your day, man.
It's your day. It's your day. It's my board.
Do you want my help?
No, I don't want your help. I don't want your help.
Oh, you don't want my
I
help?
don't want your help.
Tip number 3, no backpacks.
Just don't.
Just don't.
Don't.
Don't do it. This may seem like a weird tip. A backpack isn't the worst thing in the world, but it is going to slow you down. You're not allowed to wear a backpack onto many of the rides at the park, meaning that you'll have to take the time to go out of your way to put it in a locker. Now, the locker is free to use with your ticket, but you don't want to get stuck behind a group of people who don't know how to use the lockers, because believe me, there are many of them, and you will get stuck waiting a good 10 minutes for someone trying to figure out how to put their bag into a locker.
It's his first time on his own.
Once again, congratulations.
But there is good news. If you're thinking, oh, how am I supposed to carry all my stuff? Fanny packs are allowed on most rides in the park, except for the Hulk and Velocicoaster. Now, you may be averse to be showing off this wonderful dad-like fashion.
I think it's pretty great.
I think it's pretty
myself.
great. But if you want to save time, you gotta wear the fanny pack.
Now, before we move on, these next 2 tips are probably the most important things you can do if you want to maximize the amount of attractions that you're able to ride and avoid long lines at the park. So listen up.
Listen up, bucko.
Tip number 4.
You gotta arrive early.
General admission to the park is different for different times of the year, but our general rule is that you should be in the parking lot about an hour before you're able to get on the rides. If you can get in at 9, you should be there at 8. If you can get in at 8, you should be there at 7.
Now you may think, but wait, am I just showing up early to wait? Here's the thing. Come in closer. Showing up early at the park will put you at the park at the best time of day to avoid the big lines. And even on the most crowded days of the year, you may be able to walk on multiple rides in a row if you play it right and just get a little lucky.
Wait a little at the beginning to skip a lot of waiting in the future. Now, the only next question is, once you're in the park, what rides do you go to first? That brings us to our next tip, which is tip number 5, don't rush the big rides. Don't do it.
Now, I know it's tempting. I know for a lot of people, some people flock to Islands of Adventure just to ride Hagrid's or Velocicoaster. So that's just the one thing on your mind, but don't.
Don't do it.
Patience.
You may think that at the beginning of the day that these lines are going to be the shortest, so I should just run back and get on Hagrid's or get on Velocicoaster. Don't do this. Now, again, this tip will only work if you arrived early at the park, but if you're there, trust us, hit the smaller or less popular rides first.
Why do you do this? Well, the big rides like Hagrid's and Velocicoaster, they're going to be crowded all day long. Most of the time, they're the only rides open for early admission.
And since they're the only rides that were open for early admission, before you even step foot into the park, they're already going to have very long lines.
I was looking through the wait times on the Universal app at the beginning of the day. Hagrid's was a 240-minute wait. And later in the day, when we rode it in the evening, it was only a 150-minute wait. Like, it's still a long wait, but that's almost 100 minutes shorter than it was in the morning. So don't rush there, because that's what everyone does.
Don't think like the general population. Be different.
Be different.
No, instead, you want to hit some of the smaller rides first, like Spider-Man, the Hulk, Jurassic Park River Adventure, Kong, Poseidon's Fury, the water rides. All of these are the rides that you want to ride straight from the beginning. For example, on this recent trip to Islands of Adventure, from the second we walked into the park, we got there an hour early. We waited on the bridge after getting into the park. We went straight to the Hulk. It was a walk-on. We went straight to Spider-Man right after that. Walked on it. We went to Jurassic Park. Waited like 15 minutes. You could already see the timer starting to go up a little bit. And then we hit the water rides. We hit Poseidon's Fury. All of these we hit in the beginning of the day. Before we even hit noon, we had ridden like 5 or 6 rides.
But later in the day, as we were walking by these previous rides, their wait times were well over 100 minutes.
Well over.
Yeah.
Which, that's just not worth it. These rides are going to fill out later in the day, but when the park opens, they'll be empty. So that's what you want to hit first. Don't rush the big rides, because those are going to have long waits all day. You'll eventually have to bite the bullet and wait for them. But it's better if you can get all of these littler rides in first. This is really the biggest tip that we would give you. If you could only remember one thing from this video, it's this tip. Get there early and ride the small rides first. If you can do that, you're well on your way to enjoying your day at Islands of Adventure. But that doesn't mean that we don't have more tips for you, so let's get into the next one.
Number 6, use the app to check lines. This is a very simple tip, but as we just described how the lines usually play out, anything can happen though. Every time we get off a ride, I pull out the Universal app, I look at the wait times to decide what to go to next, and it's very helpful. And it lets you know whether a ride is closed or delayed, which is also very helpful. And there's also a very nifty feature that if you go on the app and click on a ride, you can set a notification. For example, Spider-Man, you want to go on it, you want to wait under an hour for it. So you can set a timer, and whenever the ride hits under 60-minute wait, it'll let you know.
Definitely get the app and definitely use it. Tip number 7, be ready to walk.
And fast.
And what we were just talking about as the best way to avoid the long lines, I will say it's not the most efficient in terms of navigating the park. A lot of the times you'll be walking from one side of the park to the other. Don't be surprised if you end up taking 3 loops around the park by the end of the day. It's gonna happen.
And on the topic of walking, you wouldn't believe how slow people walk at theme parks.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. And just to keep in mind, as you are walking, every person you pass is someone that's going to be behind you in line.
So you should push them all down.
Yeah. Shove the children out of the way.
Tip number 8, The single rider line is your friend.
Sometimes. Certain rides at Universal have single rider lines.
These are used to increase the capacity at the park and fill in any of the odd-numbered seats. For example, if there's a group of 3 people going on a ride that has seats for 4 people, they'll take someone from the single riders line and put them in with this odd-numbered group.
This means the line is usually shorter, but it usually moves at a slower rate than the regular line. And you have to keep in mind you will be separated from your main group, so if you don't mind riding with a bunch of strangers, I think it's a good consideration to have.
It's a good way to skip a lot of times. For example, when we went into Hagrid's on our trip there, it was probably at like a 3-hour wait is what we were looking at. But we hopped into the single rider line and cut down in half. We waited an hour and a half for the ride. Which I'd say is worth it. But be aware, it is a gamble.
It is a gamble.
There aren't always going to be a ton of odd-numbered groups. It's kind of luck of the draw. Sometimes the single rider line might end up being longer than the regular line. So play it by ear. If the line looks pretty short, it's usually worth it. If it looks long, probably not worth it.
Yeah.
I'd recommend it probably for Hagrid's the most. The other rides, usually it won't save you a ton of time. Tip number 9, be ready to wait. This tip is kind of unfortunate. There are certain rides that you're just gonna have to wait for if you're at the park. So be ready for that, especially later in the day.
It's like Velocicoaster and Hagrid's. You won't regret it.
You won't regret
It
it.
is worth the wait. The only real tip we have for these rides is just watch the wait times throughout the day, just to see if you can spot any trends.
And finally, our last tip is be ready to improvise. You never know when a ride's going to be delayed, if a line's going to be short, or if you want to spend some extra time in a shop or just exploring the land, because there are many things to explore at Islands of Adventure.
In the end, this is your day to have fun. So whatever you want to do, if you just want to roam around, just take in the good theming and the atmosphere,
vibes.
if you just want to explore, it is your day. So do what you want to do.
Enjoy the park however you like.
Yep.
So there you have it. There are our 10 tips for how to maximize your day at Islands of Adventure. If you've been to the park, have any other tips that you'd like to recommend, leave them in the comments below. If you end up trying our tips, let us know how it goes as well. I'd love to see if it works for you.
And if you think, oh, their system is a piece of baloney, I have a much better system where I can ride 20 rides in the first 5 minutes of the park opening. What is it?
Well, I would
I
love
want
to
to
hear
know.
that.
Yeah.
I accept.
I
Tell me.
accept.
And just like me accepting that system, you have accepted watching this video to this point. So thank you for doing that. And if you enjoyed it,
Leave a like.
leave a like, subscribe, join us for more tips like this or any talk about theme parks. We just love talking about theme parks. We'd really appreciate it. Yes!
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. If you want to see what our typical day looks like at Islands of Adventure and Universal, click on the link above to see a recent vlog of our trip there. Bye-bye now.